Good morning, YouTube. We are in 1 Samuel chapter 15, page 295-ish in the scriptures. By the way, say hi to all these nice people. Say hi, everybody, all the nice people.
Hi, nice people.
This is about 1/3 of the men at men's retreat this weekend, which is very cool. The rest of them are strategically relaxing after fellowshipping last night. I don't know, man. When quiet time hit for me. I was like, it's bedtime. I'm going to sleep. Because I knew the morning comes early. All right, so page 295, 1 Samuel. And so we've got this back and forth between Samuel and Saul, King Saul, right? And Samuel being the prophet, he was a Levite, he was a priest, and he was kind of a biblical BA. Other than his two sons being a mess, right? Which they were. Other than that, he was kind of a biblical BA. And we don't revere men, but in the oral retelling of the story, Samuel always kind of holds this very interesting status of he was a man, but he was a Levite, and he was a priest, and he's one of the few people in the Bible that has a real clear origin story. He was set apart from birth, and he is a kingmaker. He makes kings. That's what he biblically did, and so that's why he's kind of put on a pedestal. We don't put men on pedestals, but to the extent that there's important people in this book, he's one of them. And we have him in contention with Saul, King Saul, here in 1 Samuel. And Saul was selected by Samuel, by Yah, to be the king of Israel. Israel was never supposed to have a king, right? Remember at the foot of the mountain, they were like, hey, Moshe was like, hey, let's go up the mountain and hear what Yah has to say. And they're like, we're good, you go. Bring the Cliff Notes back. We'll be down here. Don't worry. We're totally behaving. Oh, look, a golden calf. Bring me a sword. Right, that whole story. Israel was never supposed to have a king. And then we had the institution of a king or a leader or headship over Israel because they refused to hear the word of Yah. So here in 1 Samuel 15, we have some of that king versus refusing to hear the word of Yah thing going on. All right. So, and Samuel said to Saul, Yahweh sent me to anoint you king, sovereign over his people, over Israel. And now listen to the words of Yahweh. Thus said Yahweh of hosts, and that's Yahweh Sabaoth in the Hebrew. And the implication there is not like, it's hosts of angels, but most people think like, those kind of, it's so beautiful, those angels. It's not. It's like broadsword, shield, I will slay you if you don't listen, angels. And so when you see that Yahweh of hosts, it's like this is the general speaking. It's the leader of the army of hosts speaking. And so it's with that authority when you see that he's talking. He's like, it's a knife hand. Look, right? So, thus said Yahweh of hosts, I shall punish Amalek for what he did to Israel, how he set himself against him on the way when he came up from Mitzrayim. Now go, and you shall strike Amalek and put under the ban all that he has, and you shall not spare them, and put to death from man to woman, from infant to nursing child, from ox to sheep, from camel to donkey. A little extreme. Hey, go in there and wipe out everybody. However, what is the command? We see this in the end of Deuteronomy and the beginning of Joshua. What are they supposed to do when they go into the promised land? Go in there and wipe out everybody because they are heathens and they will pollute you and then you will no longer follow me. This is the same tactic. It's the reason that to this day the Jews hate Balaam. Because he's like, look, you can't defeat Israel in battle, but you can send your whorish daughters into Israel and pollute them, right? It's the same tactic. And so rather than having that available as a tactic from the enemy, it's like, just go in there and eradicate. There's no way that you can be corrupted if they're all gone. So it's the same command here again. in 1 Samuel 15. Then Shaul summoned the people and mustered them in Telaim 200,000 foot soldiers and 10,000 men of Judah. It's a lot of peeps. And Shaul came into the city of Amalek and lay in wait in the wadi, a dry riverbed. And Shaul said to the Canaanites, "Go, turn aside, come down from among the Amalekites, lest I destroy you with them. For you did show loving commitment to all the children of Israel when they came up out of Mitzrayim." So the Canaanites turned aside from the midst of the Amalekites. So Shaul sent word ahead. He's like, "Yo, we are fixing to tear this place apart. You're my buddy. We don't want any blue on blue. You need to take your people, get out of here." Okay, so we have direct action against the Amalekites coming up. The Canaanites are in the way. We send a messenger to the Canaanites. You got to move. They move. Then Shaul moves in. And Shaul struck the Amalekites from Havilah all the way to Shur, which is before Mitzrayim. And he caught Agag, sovereign king of the Amalekites, alive, and put under the ban all the people with the edge of the sword. But Shaul and the people spared Agag, and the best of the sheep, and the cattle, and the fatlings, and the lambs, and all that was good, and would not put them under the ban. But all the goods despised and worthless, that they put under the ban. And the word of Yahweh came to Samuel, saying, "I am grieved that I have set up Shaul as sovereign, for he has turned back from following me and has not performed my words." And it displeased Samuel, and he cried to Yahweh all night. So Shaul was told clearly in verse 3, "Now go, and you shall strike Amalek and put under the ban all that he has." Wipe it out. What happens over here in verse 9? Do they wipe it out? No. They take the direction of Yah, and they start applying their own man-made bullcrap to it. Well, God said we should do this. He said wipe everything out. But man, that's a really nice bull. We need that bull. Those are some sweet sheep. Those are going to look good in my pen. Yada, 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 yada. Wait a minute. I said go in there and wipe out everything. That's not what they're doing. And then they go even further, as we'll see, where they say, but the reason that we kept this sweet bull was so we could offer it to Yah. A-hole, I told you to kill that thing, and now you're bringing it to me as a sacrifice? No. Right? This gets all the way back to Exodus and the Ten Commandments. Right? Don't take the Lord's name in vain. Doesn't mean don't say GD. It means don't put his stamp of approval on your bullcrap. You told me to kill everything. We didn't kill everything. But the things that we didn't kill, we're going to kill for you. Wait a minute. This is not what we talked about, right? And so it's interesting that in verse 11 you have that Yah is saying, "I am grieved that I have set up Shaul as king." And we see this elsewhere, which we'll get to in a moment in 15. The idea that Yah would be grieved, as if he didn't know what was going to happen in the first place. He knew. It's just sometimes, at least speaking for myself, like, y'all know that we had that sheep that broke her leg, right? Mm-hmm. That sheep is dead. That sheep is dead because she got sick. She got sick. And she was carrying twins. Didn't know that she was carrying twins. One of them was quite well developed. One of them wasn't. And there's the rule of the 4 S's. Sick sheep seldom survive. It cost me a bunch of money from a vet to learn that. So Spot was not doing good. And I had to take Spot, lay her on the ground, calm her down, and then take my knife and drag it across her throat. And then perform my first ever sheep cesarean section to determine if the babies were alive. And one of them was about 2 weeks shy, mostly developed, but not alive. The other one looked like a liver with little hooves. It was completely undeveloped, and that's why she was sick. That was the right thing to do. I had to do that. But I was grieved in the doing of it. Does that make sense? So as Yah is seeing Shaul, who was instituted as the king of Israel, he had to do that for his purposes, right? For all righteousness, as we would call it biblically. It's for his purposes. But even though it was the right thing to do, it doesn't mean that it's not painful in the doing of. So it's kind of an intimate look at Yah. Like, he cares for his people, and he's upset that he has this king who's supposed to be serving his people with a heart for Yah, and who is not. And that grieves him. But that, of course, leads to later things, as we'll see, because without Shaul, we don't get David. Without David, we don't get Yeshua. Without Yeshua, we don't get Yah, right? But in the doing of, he's grieved because he had to pass through this hard spot with Shaul to get to the good stuff for Israel and then for us. All right, 12. And Samuel rose early in the morning to meet Shaul. And it was told to Samuel, remember, Samuel's the high priest. He's the guy, right? And so Samuel gets word saying, Shaul went to Carmel, and see, he set up a monument for himself. Set up a monument for himself. And turned and passed over and went down to Gilgal. And Samuel came to Shaul, and Shaul said to him, Blessed are you of Yahweh, I have performed the word of Yah. He's like, what's up, Sam? We did it. And Sam's pissed. But Samuel said, What then is this? The bleating of the sheep in my ears and the lowing of the cattle that I hear. Oh, you did it? I hear sheep. I hear cattle. What's going on, bro? And Shaul said, They have brought them from Amalek because the people spared the best of the sheep and the cattle to slaughter to Yahweh, your Elohim. Look at the wording there. He doesn't say to slaughter to Yahweh, my Elohim. He says to slaughter to Yahweh, your Elohim.
About they.
Dude, that's exactly right. They brought the cat. Wait a minute, bro. You're the king. There is no they. There is you. You are responsible for the leadership of the men underneath you. That's exactly right, John. They have brought them from Amalek because the people spared, spared, I'm sure it was the people. The people spared the best of the cattle. And if it was the people, lack of leadership on the part of Shaul. They didn't understand the commander's intent because he didn't understand the commander's intent, right? Because it's your Elohim, not Shaul's Elohim.
And that's tied back into stewardship because as king, he's responsible for their decisions as well.
That's exactly right. It's top-down leadership. They have brought them from Amalek because the people spared the best of the sheep and the cattle to slaughter to Yahweh, your Elohim, and the rest we've put under the ban. We got like a B+ on this put under the ban thing. In his mind, he's like, we did most of it. Like, we're good, right? And Samuel said to Shaul, Wait and let me declare to you what Yahweh said to me last night. And he said to him, Speak. And Samuel said, Though you were little in your own eyes, were you not head of the tribes of Israel? And did not Yahweh anoint you king over Israel? And Yahweh sent you on the way and said, Go, and you shall put under the ban the sinners, the Amalekites, and fight against them until they are consumed. And why did you not obey the voice of Yahweh, but swooped down on the spoil and did evil in the eyes of Yahweh? Samuel knows what's up. He's got a good report. And he's calling Saul, Shaul, call him out on the carpet going, Hey man, you told me you did a good job. If you did a good job, why didn't you do all of this? And the crux of the issue here, we're not even at the end of the chapter, but the crux of the issue is Saul was established by Yah, but Saul wasn't a follower of Yah. He was a placeholder. He was there, but he wasn't working at the direction of Yah. He didn't understand. He didn't have the heart condition to be obedient to Yah. And Shaul said to Samuel, I did obey the voice of Yahweh, and I went on the way on which Yahweh sent me, and brought back Agag, sovereign of Amalek, and put Amalek under the ban. He's like, dude, I did what you told me to do. But he's getting the second-hand voice of Yah. Voice of Yah comes to Sam. Sam passes it to Saul. Saul passes it down from there. But he doesn't have that one-on-one connection with Yah. Yahweh, your Elohim, he tells him. Not my Elohim, not our Elohim, your Elohim. But the people took of the spoil, of the sheep and the cattle, the best of that which should have been put under the ban, to slaughter to Yahweh, your Elohim, in Gilgal. Again. Then Samuel said, does Yahweh delight in ascending offerings and slaughterings as in obeying the voice of Yahweh? Look, to obey is better than a slaughtering. To heed is better than the fat of rams. For rebellion is as the sin of divination, and stubbornness is as wickedness and idolatry. Because you have rejected the word of Yahweh, he does also reject you as king. So, who's got a Proverbs 21 for me real quick? Anybody? Proverbs 21:3. Dudley. First person to get it, go.
To do righteousness and right ruling is more acceptable to Yahweh than a slaughtering.
To do righteousness and right ruling is more acceptable to Yah than a slaughtering. You should have listened in the first place and done what I said, rather than have to make a slaughtering to make up for the fact that you didn't listen to what I told you to do in the first place. Right? Better to have not sinned at all than to have sinned, to have transgressed, and then had to make an offering because you transgressed. Does that make sense? Right?
And he acknowledged that he knew, because he says the best of which should have been put under the ban. So the reason it was evil in the sight of Yah was because he knew the right thing to do and didn't have the gumption or whatever it took to correct the people and say,
Yep.
this is not what we were instructed.
I think he agreed in his heart. I think he was looking at all that stuff going, we can't destroy that stuff.
Isn't in the Old Testament a lot of times evil also related to greed? Mm-hmm. Like being stingy or greedy?
Yeah, having an evil eye
Right.
means to be greedy.
About, well, these guys did all this hard work and I need to reward them.
Yeah. I think there could have, that's a good point, especially if you're looking at it from like a military standpoint. Spoils of war, and hey, we're going to eat that cow, it's beautiful. And we're going to eat that cow, it's beautiful. And we're going to eat all those sheep, they're beautiful. Light me a fire, let's do this thing. By the way, that's a lovely gold chain you found, so forth and so on. That's not what Yah said. And what Yah proves over and over again is that if you destroy the heathen in your midst, so that you can be dedicated unto him, he just provides and blesses and protects over and over and over again. And so there's a reiteration of that here, that trust in him. Get rid of all this worldly nonsense, trust in him. He will take you all the way down to nothing, right? It's smoldering piles of ash. Cool. Watch what we can do with this, right? Smoldering pile of ash right here,
On top of that, he didn't tell them this time like with Jericho, burn everything in place. He said go kill the living things.
Mm-hmm.
They could have walked off with the gold chains and the clothes this time and not had an AI in their future.
But also, like you said, you have to have that personal relationship with the Creator to have that faith and trust that the blessings will come.
Yep. That's absolutely right. And Saul, as king of Israel, should be taking orders from Yah. And he's not, because he doesn't have that personal relationship. Twice he says, Yahweh, your Elohim, not Yahweh, my Elohim. For rebellion is as the sin of divination, and stubbornness is as wickedness and idolatry. Because you have rejected the word of Yahweh, he does also reject you as king. And Shaul said to Samuel, I have sinned, for I have transgressed the mouth of Yahweh. I have that underlined in my Bible. I have sinned, for I have transgressed the mouth of Yahweh. This is backed up by 1 John 3, verse 4. What is sin? Sin is lawlessness, and all who do sin do lawlessness. This is one of these circular questions. Y'all know this because, you follow along in the Bible with me. It would piss me off at church. Hey, what's sin? Well, brother, sin is when you fall short of the mark. What mark? Well, when you make God angry. How do I make him angry? Well, when you do the wrong thing. How do I know what the wrong thing is? Well, it's when you fall short of the mark. Literally, if you put that into Microsoft Excel, that's called a circular reference, and it throws an error code. That doesn't work. And so here we have, and in the mouths of two or three, let everything be established, right? Old Testament, right here. Shaul said, I have sinned, for I have transgressed the mouth of Yahweh. So sin is transgressing the mouth of Yahweh. John says in 1 John 3 verse 4, sin is transgression of the law, which comes from the mouth of Yahweh, right? So there it is. And your words, because I feared the people and listened to their voice. And now, please pardon my sin and return with me and let me bow myself to Yahweh. He's like, yeah, man, you caught me. I messed up. Hey, throw me a quick pardon. Let's go slaughter something to Yah. We'll handle this. But Samuel said to Shaul, I do not return with you, for you have rejected the word of Yahweh, and Yahweh does reject you from being king over Israel. And as Samuel turned around to go away, Shaul took a hold of the edge of his robe and tore it. And Samuel said to him, Yahweh has torn the reign, the kingdom of Israel from you today, and has given it to a neighbor of yours better than you. Moreover, the eminence of Israel does not lie, nor relent, for he is not a man that he should relent. Then Shaul said, I have sinned, but esteem me now, please. Glorify me now, please, before the elders of my people and before Israel, and return with me, and I shall bow myself to Yahweh, your Elohim. 3 times. Hey, let's just make this right. Glorify me in front of the elders, in front of Israel, and I will bow down to Yahweh, your Elohim. 3 times. 3 times in this one chapter. Shaul's heart was far from Yah. That was the problem in the first place. And you can't be a good leader of Israel if your heart is far from Yah. That's your job, is to be near him, right? And Samuel turned back after Shaul, and Shaul bowed himself to Yah. And Samuel said, bring Agag, king of the Amalekites, here to me. And so Agag came to him delightedly. And Agag said, truly the bitterness of death has turned aside. He's like, nice, I've been pardoned. Sweet. And Samuel said, as your sword bereaved women, let your mother be bereaved among women too. And Samuel then hewed Agag to pieces before Yahweh in Gilgal. That's making quite a statement there. I told you to put everybody under the ban. You didn't. Bring me the king. Before Yah. He did it before Yah. He's like, watch this, everybody. You guys think you're going to be eating the fattened lambs and slaughtering cows over here and partying with all your gold and your silver and your treasure? Bring me that king. And hewed him to pieces. He didn't behead him. He didn't run him through. He hacked him into pieces. That was the witness that was given to Israel. Hey, this is what I told you to do. And I think, at least for me in today's day and age, I have a hard time thinking of, I can go there if I try. But I have a hard time thinking of a people group off the top of my head where I'm like, bring me a sword, I'm going to hack that dude into pieces. Like I said, I could go there if I try. But probably not a healthy emotion in 2021, right? Dr. Trevor will be talking more about that later.
You know a guy.
Yeah, I know a guy too.
Did you need a list?
No lists. CIA, FBI.
No list.
But imagine being so filled with the Spirit of Yah and being so utterly disgusted by a group of people that are so outside the lines of what Yah has commanded us to do with our lives. That, let's say Phelps is king of Israel, and we're Israel, and Phelps is like, I'm going to teach y'all something today, and picks up a broadsword and just starts making chop meat out of somebody, going, this is what we do to these people. That's brutal, but it's what Yah said to do. That's how far outside the lines they are. And there's a lot of places you could go with this, but it absolutely illustrates the difference between Israel and the nations. It's why we want to be Israel, not the nations. You can take this all the way forward to the book of Revelation. When Yeshua returns and he's on a horse, what's coming out of his mouth? A sword. And what is he doing with it? Destroying the nations. There's nothing left but bird food. That's it. You got Israel and bird food. I don't want to be bird food. So, again, congruency. Old Testament, New Testament. First page, last page. What a coincidence. It's almost like a loving creator just put all this stuff in a book in order, sequential order. And it all makes sense if you read it in context. Who'd have thought? We don't want to be that far outside of the line of what Yah has commanded for us. To the point where the high priest, who at this point is Samuel, but now we know from Hebrews is Yeshua, is like, hey, watch this. I'm going to swing my sword and turn you into chopped meat. No bueno, right? And Samuel went to Ramah, while Shaul went up to his house at Yehva of Shaul. And Samuel did not see Shaul again until the day of his death. For Samuel mourned for Shaul, and Yahweh was grieved that he had made Shaul to reign over Israel. And again, we talked about Yah being grieved. None of this surprised him, but it was required for his purposes. Without the lows of Shaul, we don't get the highs of Dawid, King David, right? And I just love the fact that he's mournful for his people. He hates the fact, in my words, not the Bible's words, but he hates the fact that, hey, my people got to go through this so that we can get to the good stuff. You know? He's a disappointed father. Amen. Yes, Charles.
Coming from only reading just or following just Revelations or just the New Testament, we're reading out of the Old Testament, but you just read one whole chapter of the Old Testament, and this is repeating in the New Testament, almost word for word before in the New Testament.
Yeah.
So if you take a second and you're reading for everybody right now, the same thing. I'm sitting here listening to you from the New Testament, but you're reading it to us in the Old Testament. Mm-hmm. So for those of you out there that are paying attention, we're reading in the Old Testament.
Congruency, brother.
So take a second and think about that. For those of you that say that the Old Testament we don't need anymore. We only need to listen and live in the New Testament. And those of you that sit there and argue with me, i.e. my brother that sits there and argues with me all the time and says we only need to live in the New Testament right now. The Old Testament talked about it first.
Yep.
We're
Amen.
repeating it. So yeah, we need both books because we talked about it in the Old Testament first. I
There's
just want to point that out.
There's not another book on the face of this earth that, as somebody who was interested in a new author, would pick up the book and turn to page 400 or 500 and start reading and think that they had an idea of who the characters were, what the overarching theme of the story was. We don't do that. You don't go, this is a great movie, started at about an hour and 15 minutes in. Right? So,
And along those same lines, what you're saying, those who do have that mindset, this is a shadow of the same thing. They said, oh, well, I want the word of God, but I only want this part of it. I'm gonna ignore this part.
Yep.
I'm gonna keep
Yep.
these sheep, because they look nice, in my pen, you know? They're like, well, we're gonna keep this first part and just say that this last part was just done away with.
But that was just in one chapter. I mean, that just blew my mind, just listening to you. This was just one chapter. That's not all these books, 66 books. That's just one chapter.
Yep.
So I just want to say that.
Amen. All right, that's going to do it for Samuel this morning for us, because I can smell Oki's potatoes, and we still got another reading to do. So, bless you all, YouTube. Shalom.